Good afternoon, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting for January 22nd, 2025. For information on council meetings and how to participate, please visit everettwa.gov/city-council. For the record, some of our council members are participating remotely. Councilmember Fossey, Councilmember Bader, and Councilmember Ryan. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin. Here. Vice President Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Fossey.
Here.
Councilmember Bader.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Excused.
Councilmember Tui.
Here.
President Schwab.
Here. At this time, I'd like to ask Vice President Zarlingo to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And at this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Bader to read the land acknowledgement.
I think Councilmember Tui was going to take that over for me today, since I.
Fantastic.
All right. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stahuchi people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you very much. On old business, do I hear a motion to approve of the minutes of January 15th, 2025?
So moved.
Second the motion?
Okay, motion and second's been made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Fossey. Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes, on to the mayor. Good afternoon.
President Schwab, there's a second minutes for retreat approval on there.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Okay,
Move to
so-
approve the minutes from the retreat.
Oh, thank you very much.
Second the motion?
Okay, motion and second's been made to approve the retreat minutes. Clerk, please take the roll.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Fossey.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Now I can speak. Good afternoon, Mayor. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon, Council President and Council and Community. I know that the attack on our 13-year-old student on his way to school is still weighing heavily on our hearts from last week, and I wanted to invite Chief DeRoos forward to share whatever update you can on the ongoing investigation.
Certainly. Hello, Mayor and council members. I think anytime an event like what happened last Thursday occurs in our community, it strikes us all at our core. I've spent the last few days speaking to the community, speaking to the media, and it made sense to come provide you guys with an update as well. When something like that happens, you know, it's really all hands on deck for the police department. We redeploy resources in a way to search the area when it initially occurs. You know, once we have information such as the picture, we put it out there. As pictures get better, we put the better pictures out there. And we were able to identify, through sharing some of that information with our community, we were able to identify the suspect. And currently, he has a warrant for his arrest. So truly believe it's just a matter of time before we locate him. In an effort to help with tracking him down, we reassign people to different duties. I was just advised before the meeting by the lieutenant that we sent a couple of our PROACT teams to the south end of Everett where we thought he might be located. And we worked hand in hand with the county, who's been a great partner on this and a lot of other investigations that we're involved in. Still has not been located, but I just believe that it's a matter of time before that happens.
Thank you, Chief. And just so you all know, we have a school resource officer in that school, and we continue to have school resource officers and try to be a very proactive presence in all of our schools and provide that stability and assurance and working in partnership. So does anyone have any questions for the chief? Well, yeah, and just as a side note, Chief DeRoos led by example and was out on the streets all day that day and continues to lead by example with his team to be an active member in this investigation. So thank you, Chief. And
you're welcome.
with that, I have no
Now it's time for public comment, which includes written comment acknowledgement under our rules. Written comments shall be considered in the same manner as oral comments. The person submitting comments must provide their name and city of residence. Written comments require this to be made part of the official city record. Angie, do we have any written comments or anyone signed up to speak?
Good afternoon, President Schwab. We have 2 people in chambers that would like to speak. So if Jimmy Castro could please come to the podium. And just hit the base of the right button on the base of the mic and state your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Jimmy Castro. I live in Everett. I'm doing a document that I gave. It's called City Council. This chemical biological warfare gassing at Woodhaven Apartments has been going on since June 1st, 2024. Windows were left open upstairs in number 37 during 3-day Thanksgiving weekend, and again Christmas Eve for 3 days. This left 35 extremely cold and frigid. Jimmy Castro has been gassed for 8 years, 5 years in Salem, Oregon, 3 years in Lacey, 8 months in Everett, all with the Housing Authority and HUD. No low-income housing in Everett, Washington, $2,000 a month rent with electricity, plus utilities, and PUD electric also. Dental asked Jennifer Raw on Evergreen Way and 50th Street to clean teeth and asked to keep bill down because no money from relocation. Dr. Tino Vera, endodontists, Sunbit credit at 23% for work, $250 for 3D scan. Referral to Dr. Craig Erickson, presumably periodontist for upper right molar, number 2 for extraction and implant. Jimmy Castro, after a month, canceled, looking for a referral for a periodontist. First visit, Jimmy Castro was abused by tech that took a month to calm down. Everett Housing Authority made Jimmy Castro with Thurston County Housing Authority, Lacey, Washington, honor leaves from January 2nd, 2024 to May 31st, 2024, while gassing Jimmy Castro 92% of the time for 5 months. Everett Housing Authority has a big steel door with intercom that is a war door. No access for the public. This war door must come down. Jimmy Castro for 8 years has asked for a home, refused, saying no home by the Housing Authority in Salem, Oregon, Lacey, Washington, and Everett, Washington. Jimmy Castro full and all money to be released immediately. Last 50 years from Supreme Court, Probate Court, Washington, D.C., International Criminal Court, The Hague, Netherlands. Jimmy Castro last 8 years has had bad public health and medical, dental, and vision of malpractice and unprofessionalism. Numerous assaults by criminals, transit drivers, and security. FBI owes Jimmy Castro money from 2021, not paid yet by Portland, Oregon. All money paid out now immediately to Jimmy Castro. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, if Jeff Kelly could please come to the podium. And state your full name and city of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Kelly. I'm from the Delta neighborhood. I'm the chair of the Delta Neighborhood Association. Here today to speak about the playground that was built at the Wiggums Park playfield. The new Wiggums Hollow Playground has exceeded the Delta neighborhood's expectations by providing a safe and inclusive space for children and young people of all abilities. The new playground provides safe activities for all by complying with the standards of the American with Disabilities Act. Also, the new synthetic turf and padding help to protect all who play there from injuries. We also appreciate very much that this project was done in a timely manner. Some of our neighbors have expressed feeling forgotten at times. Projects like this help to show that we are not forgotten. The Wiggums Park Playground project was intentional to our young people's many needs, well done, and essential to our community. The Delta Neighborhood Association looks forward to continue to work with the city on future projects, including the Delta Interpretive Trails. Thank you to all of you who work to make Everett a better place. And a special thank you to our Delta Neighborhood City Council person, Mary Fossey. Thank you very much.
And I'll just say our Parks Director is here, and I'm sure that warms his heart to hear those words, so thank you for sharing.
That concludes public comments. There are no written comments.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the recognition of the role of parks developments. I see that from parks all over the place, especially in this, as we densify and there are smaller and smaller backyards and front yards and that sort of thing, these parks become more and more important, and I just see them used at a furious pace, so that warms my heart as well. One quick note, I attended the Snohomish County Law and Justice Council meeting yesterday. I sort of represent that, as does Chief DeRoos. It's a group that includes police and the sheriff's department, courts, public defenders, elected officials, and representatives of the community. And just want to make a quick note that I think one of the real benefits of this Law and Justice Council is that it helps provide all those different elements that I just mentioned, a connection to each other to make sure that law and justice function as well in our county as they can. And a really good example yesterday was Mayor Don Vanny of Arlington had brought up a concern, kind of a disconnection between some of the requirements for community service obligations that come as part of the sentencing of some people and part of the whole justice process, and that there were some disconnections there in terms of people trying to fulfill those community service obligations in a timely, a prompt manner and as close to home as possible, which helps them stay connected to their communities. So that's just the kind of thing that I think that Law and Justice Council can do, and a great investment of our time. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fossey.
I don't have any more updates for tonight, other than it's really nice to hear about when government does right, and thanks to our Parks Department for awesome project, well done. I got to be there for the ribbon cutting, and it was it's an amazing park now. So you guys definitely should all check out Wiggum's Hollow.
Thank you. Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. Just a couple items. I went to the Delta neighborhood meeting last Thursday evening. I was only able to be there for a half hour. Jeff did a great job, as usual, running the meeting, but equally as good, Chief DeRoos was there and just gave a really good sharing of information with the community about what's going on, both with flock cameras and I think a lot of other questions. Councilmember Toohey was there, I think, for the whole meeting, so she might have additional to report. Library board meeting was last night. Welcomed a new board member. And just a couple items to note. The library received another very generous bequest. And so now they're going to use that money for some of their needs as well as so thanks to the community again. I think it was almost $100,000 bequest. Another item to note, kind of on the sad side, is in their monthly report they now note the security incidents that the staff has had to deal with, and good half dozen there from this past month. Kind of a sad thing that they have to note that, but I think it's a good thing that they do keep track of that information and make the staff makes the board members aware of the challenges that staff sometimes has to face there. So anyhow, good information and good board meeting, and appreciate the opportunity to be there and be their liaison for another meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thanks. Good afternoon. Since I saw folks last, I was able to attend the Port Gardner Neighborhood Association meeting and the Glacier View neighborhood meeting to share more about the budget and stadium work that we've been doing. Last week I was down in Olympia and had the opportunity to testify at the Capital Budget Committee in support for funding for the joint firefighting training facility here, and that's hopefully going to be going in here in Everett. So I'm sure Trevor will touch on that during his update later as well, but just really glad that my first testimony this session could be in support of public safety. So I just wanted to mention that. And thanks everybody for a great council retreat this last weekend. And a special thank you to everyone who worked behind the scenes to put it on, get the lunch orders in and chairs set up and everything to make it move so smoothly. So thanks everybody.
Thank you. Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, just a couple things. I was able to to join Councilmember Bader at the Delta Neighborhood Association, and I just want to give a shout out to Jeff and his leadership. It was a very large gathering of folks, and he really led that group so that they could all get their questions asked and answered. And Chief DeRoos did a great job, and it was very informative, I think, for the whole neighborhood. And I just want to thank all of our neighborhood association folks, leadership group that have been working so hard for so many years. You just see a lot of the same ones that just hang in there, and they're so crucial to our community. So just want to shout out to all of them, and special thank you tonight for Jeff.
Yeah, and thank you. Salary Commission, we put off the vote until next Wednesday. That's the latest, because I know council, there's a lot of decisions and there's a lot of applicants. I think there was some more time we wanted to review, so I appreciate the staff and their hard work. I know they, behind the scenes, are doing a lot of work, so we make sure, and we'll make that decision next Wednesday on their behalf. Also, if there's some more applications, close them Monday night is the latest. Also, thank you for participating in the council retreat. Also, thanks to the mayor staff. I know we had several representatives there, and it was very helpful. I really appreciate it very much. A couple of takeaways. The budget process, of course, as we all know, has been one of the biggest challenges that we've had lately, and putting together a schedule and a process that I'll be coming with more information on that. And also, we talked a lot about the committee structure and got some really good ideas from this group, and we'll move forward with those and proposing some of those ideas that you came up with. So thank you very much for this council and the mayor's staff for all the participation. Okay, moving on to our consent items. We have 7 items. Oh, before we do that, I will include the group that I was just talking how great about. It's one of those days, this afternoon thing, this 12:30 thing. So do we have anything for administration?
Just 2 quick things. One, a brief note on the second consent item that's on your agenda. That item authorizes the call for bids for the move of the Everett Mall Transit Station platform. It's funded with transit funds, not other capital or general government dollars, and it's in partnership with the owners of the mall, the Brixton Capital. Goes along with the rest of the mall revitalization, which is an exciting opportunity. And it'll bring a more functional transit platform and experience to what will soon be a more lively and revitalized Everett Mall. So, and then the second one is just a thank you to appreciate taking a little extra time on the Salary Commission, and a thanks for making sure you get that done next week for our staff to begin work with the Salary Commission, since that all has to be done by the first week of May. So, thanks.
Thank you. Our city attorney.
No comments and no executive session.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we can move to consent items. We have items 1 through 7. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent items.
Second the motion.
Motion second's been made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes?
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Did we get a yes out of? Okay, thank you. All right. All right, moving on to proposed action items. I will read the next 4 proposed action items into the record. Starting with item number 8, Council Bill 2501-01. First reading, adopt an ordinance amending ordinance 3908-22 entitled Final Fire Training Center Project, Fund 342, Program 036 to accumulate design costs for the projects. Third and final reading is February 5th, 2025. Item number 9, Council Bill 2501-02. First reading, adopt an ordinance closing a special improvement project entitled Lowell Riverfront Park Renovations. Fund 354, Program 080, as established by ordinance number 3899-22. Third and final reading, February 5th, 2025. Item number 10, Council Bill 2501-03, first reading, adopt ordinance amending ordinance 3952-23 entitled Parks Restroom Renovation Project. Fund 354, Program 088 to accumulate all costs for the projects. Third and final reading, 2/5/25. Item number 11, Council Bill 2501-05, first reading, adopt an ordinance closing a special improvement project entitled Wiggums Hollow Playground Replacement Fund 354, Program 081, as established by ordinance number 3951-23, third and final reading, February 5th, 2025. Do I have any brief questions on the proposed action items 8 through 11? Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I believe is Bob Leonard in chambers. I had a question about the joint firefighting training facility.
Yes, Bob Leonard is here as well as Chief DeMarco.
Great. The screen, I don't have the screen anymore of what chambers looks like right now, but I'll do my best to wing it. As I mentioned, I had testified in support of $7 million in funding from the state for the firefighting training facility. Should we wait and see if the state funds the $7 million before moving ahead with allocating more funding? It seems like maybe without the $7 million, we can't go further on the project. So just wanted to check in on timing of how we allocate our funds versus waiting from the state to know if they're going to be helping us out.
Bob Leonard, Parks and Facilities. Great question. Thank you for that. When we put this on the agenda, we were still anticipating getting the state funds at that time. We had some internal discussions about whether to push this off, to delay it, but we decided as a group to keep this on. There's still a chance with your great lobbying that we might still potentially get some funds. However, even if we were not to get some funds, I think there's the possibility of changing some of the scope where we could still do the project.
And I'll just add, Councilmember Ryan, that the project is slated to be funded both with state funds, the hopeful of the defense community is $7 million, that we were ranked first, and so we're just hoping that as it works its way through the legislature, that can be reinstated, or some portion of it. And then the bulk of the funding actually would come from a federal grant, same kind of program, Defense Communities Infrastructure Program, that would close the rest of the gap up to the approximately $20 million cost. This funding and advancing the design helps us make the most competitive application to the federal government. So, and that application period is in the summer. So it's, we appreciate council approval of just keeping the project alive so that we can hopefully make a successful application this year.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to add to that as well. We've applied for funding for this at the federal level multiple times. And it's been frustrating because we need to get the state funding to get the federal funding, and then we need to get the federal funding to get the state funding, and it's been back and forth like that. And so I can't tell you how much I appreciate your advocacy on this, Councilmember Ryan. That's very helpful, and definitely our lobbyists' work. And I know Chief DeMarco has been advocating. We are ranked #1 at the state. It just, for whatever reason, the way it was ordered in the governor's budget, it wasn't by ranking, which is unusual. So hopefully these efforts will result in that state funding. Without the state funding, we can still do a project. It will just be not the level of training facility we really need and want, but we could at least have some level of training facility. And so having both the funding will allow us to have the level of training facility that that our firefighters want and need and deserve. But without the state funding, we will still go after the federal funding. We can still do a project, and as Jennifer shared, this makes it very more competitive for us. So it's a necessary step.
Great, thank you, understood.
Okay, any other questions from council on proposed action items 8 through 11? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to briefing and proposed action items. Would we have a briefing on any of these items specifically, or are they going to be in the item 15? Administration. Are we going to have any specific briefings on any of these items or on all three
As you
together?
requested, yes. Director Sass is here to give a briefing on the 3 items together.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read them in the record, and then it'll be on all 3. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
All right. Council Bill 2501-04, first reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project, Port Gardner Storage Facility, Fund 336, Program 024, and repealing ordinance number 3816-21. Third and final reading, 2525. Council Bill 2501-06, first reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvements project entitled Water Pollution Control Facility Combined Conveyance Improvements, Fund 336, Program 032, and repealing ordinance number 3881-22, third and final reading, February 5th, 2025. Item 14, Council Bill 2501-07, first reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project titled Edgewater Creek Bridge Improvement, Funds 303, Program 115, to accumulate all costs for the improvement, and repealing ordinance number 4002-24, third and final reading, 2525. Thank you.
And Director Sass, would you mind coming over to the table so that you're on the camera a bit better for our folks that are on Zoom, just as we're getting used to our room layout and cameras and all that? We appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Ryan Sass with Public Works. I'd just like to provide some brief comments about the 3 plans and systems funding ordinances that are before you today at first reading. These plans and systems ordinances formalize funding and set up accounting for the projects. First, the Port Gardner Storage Facility. This project is the centerpiece of our combined sewer overflow reduction and elimination program as required by an agreed order with the Washington State Department of Ecology. This project repurposes the former Kimberly-Clark wastewater plant into the Port Gardner Storage Facility. Phase 1 of the project has been completed and included selective demolition at the plant and funded complete design. This ordinance adds $111 million in funding for the construction of the facility. This facility will be constructed under a project labor agreement as a pilot program, which will be the city's first. The second, Water Pollution Control Facility Combined Conveyance Improvements. This project at the WPCF protects the plant from extreme wet weather combined sewer flows. Currently, these peak combined sewer flows overflow and bypass the plant headworks and flow into our primary aerated treatment cell. This washes solids out of the cell and into the oxidation ponds, disrupting the treatment process. This project will direct these peak flows directly to the recirculation channel and will protect the plant from damage during peak wet weather combined sewer flows. This ordinance adds $20.1 million in funding for construction of the improvements. And lastly, the Edgewater Creek Bridge replacement. This funding ordinance is to accommodate and account for an additional $850,000 in federal congressionally directed spending funds that were awarded for the project.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, on to item 15, adopt a resolution declaring the City of Everett's commitment to significantly reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries in the city among all road users by 2050 with a Vision Zero goal to achieve 0 fatalities and serious injuries.
And we have a briefing from Streets team that's working on this and their consultants. So we'll start with that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you today about Vision Zero Everett and brief you. It's our comprehensive safety action plan to reduce and eliminate serious injury and fatal crashes on our transportation system by the year 2050. I'm Corey Hirt, City Traffic Engineer. Last week in council chambers, we heard an impassioned plea from one of our residents about a terrible pedestrian crash that happened on January 10th on Broadway near Pacific Avenue. These crashes are traumatic, affecting parents, families, friends, coworkers. Everyone is deeply touched, and they are far too common. This afternoon, with the help of our consultant team from Kimley Horn and DKS, we'll provide a short briefing on where we're at and where we're headed with a plan to end these tragedies. Vision Zero Everett will lay out a long-range plan so no family needs to be touched by serious injury and fatal crashes. But it's more than a long-range plan. It's an incremental improvement plan. Vision Zero Everett will lay out early adoption strategies that will reduce serious crashes in the near term and propose a series of mid and long-term projects that will be added to the transportation improvement plan so the city can compete for funding. It will recommend policy changes like speed limit revisions, when a marked crosswalk should be installed and when it shouldn't to improve safety. And it will involve the public, working to inform and educate everyone in Everett about the importance of traffic safety. Seek input on shared experiences and solutions, and to create a pro-social safety culture where responsibility is shared. As we wrap up the briefing, the federal Safe Streets for All grant funding program requires, as a condition of funding, securing a commitment from local leaders to commit to the needed changes in policy and organizational practices to get us to zero. We'll ask council to support a resolution with a commitment prioritizing safety measures across our entire transportation system, with the ultimate goal of eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries, striving for zero accidents. For the introduction of our Vision Zero plan, I would like to introduce Brent Crowther, Project Manager for Kimley Horn, who will brief you on the development of our plan, including safe system principles, our high-risk network, and our public outreach efforts.
Great, thank you very much.
Push the...
Great, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. As a background, the Safe Streets and Roads for All program is part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, first funded in 2022. There are 5 years of funding available from the Federal Highway Administration, and the City of Everett received a planning grant through that program. We are now year 5. The year 5 call for projects will be this coming spring, and then the last year call for projects in spring of 2026. Here in Everett, this is showing the frequency of fatalities and serious injuries in Everett over the last 5 years. You can see in 2019, and again in 2020, and again in 2021, and then again in 2022, we consistently increase the number of fatalities and serious injuries that occurred within the city of Everett. And in 2022, had that all-time, or that 5-year high of 18 fatalities, and then the 51 serious injuries. We have since slightly decreased in 2023. We hope to continue to see that as the data comes back for 2024, but we do not want to take any reduction for granted, and the purpose of this plan is to identify the strategies, recommendations to continue to decrease the frequency. This chart here shows the crash types associated with those fatalities and serious injuries, with 31% of all fatal crashes being involved a pedestrian. The next most common crash type was angle crashes, and those are at intersections, left turn crashes coming in third. When we look at some of those contributing factors, you can see the number one is the vehicle failed right of way to vehicle, exceeding speeds, and then you can see also under the influence of alcohol and distracted driving within our top 5. When we focus specifically on active transportation crashes, and active transportation entails pedestrians and bicycles, this slide is showing the frequency over the last 5 years, and we had that high in 2022 of 17 pedestrian serious injury crashes and 10 pedestrian fatal crashes. And that has remained consistent, between that 14 and 17 over the last 3 years. We have fewer bicycle crashes. that you can see in blue. We haven't had a fatal bicycle crash in the last 5 years, but we have ranged between 1 and 3 fatal or serious injury, between 1 and 3 serious injury bicycle crashes over the last 5 years. The Safety Action Plan requires us to complete several elements in order to establish eligibility for the city to apply for implementation funding through that SS4A program. And the first, as Corey mentioned, was a leadership commitment from an elected official or governing body to a commitment to significantly reducing fatalities and serious injuries or achieving a goal of 0. Second is a plan is overseen by a committee, and we meet monthly with that committee within the city of Everett. We had a meeting this morning with our advisory committee, with whom we are meeting approximately quarterly. We have completed our safety analysis and identified key intersections and segments, which are candidate improvement locations for safety focused projects. And then we are about to initiate a public engagement with neighborhood associations, as well as an online interactive survey that will go out here the beginning of next month. The plan does include a strong emphasis on identifying disadvantaged communities and making sure that we are considering their needs both geographically and the impact on disadvantaged populations. And then the next part is reviewing existing plans and policies to make sure that are there changes to those that we can do to lead to safer focused improvements in the future, whether that's project prioritization, maybe some design standards, et cetera. And then lastly is we are identifying specific locations for which pedestrian or for which safety focused improvements can be considered. And all this is done following what we call the safe system approach that recognizes that we all have a responsibility for safe road users, that emphasizes the importance of safety features in vehicles, driving safe speeds, making sure that our roads are safe, the infrastructure is safe, and then integration with our emergency response through post-crash care. Our safety analysis at this point has identified 37 candidate safety improvement project locations, 17 segments, and 20 intersections. And those are illustrated here in the map at right. We are going to go through a prioritization process and reduce those to the top 20 locations that can be further considered for safety-focused improvements.
My name is Nikki Davis. I'm also on the team. I'm with DKS and working alongside Kimley Horn in completion of this project. Pardon me. Nikki Davis, DKS, working alongside Kimley Horn to complete the Vision Zero plan. As Brent has mentioned, while they have been looking through their safety analysis and performing the analysis, our team has been looking at your existing plans and policies to see where we can provide some improvements and where that we can prioritize transportation safety, not only for our motorists, but also for our vulnerable road users like our pedestrians and our walkers or our rollers. In that process, we've been taking a look at your local road safety plan. We've been looking at your transportation improvement plan, the Complete Streets Ordinance, which exists due to a grant that the city received. We're also looking at the transit plan, the climate action plan, and the master plan. There's a few others that we've been looking in there, and the list gets a little long for the slide. Again, we're looking to identify opportunities where we can improve upon them as they get updated to prioritize safety. Another large portion that we're looking at right now is the speed limit setting policy for the city of Everett. And with that, we've looked into doing what's called a literature review, where we take a look at how other agencies and national practices and methodologies are happening to update the process that's happening for the city of Everett. So I've got there listed 3 different approaches. We have the engineer's approach, we have the expert approach, and we have the safe system approach. In this process of updating for the city of Everett, we really took to those expert approach ideas and the safe system approach idea and we're combining them really into a policy that fits specifically for the city of Everett. Yeah, thank you. Again, you know, this is really for that city of Everett's Vision Zero goal. It sits right alongside of that, looking to make sure that our speed limits are consistent based on a decision rule, based on factors, contextual factors that play a part, looking at your land use designs and seeing how all of those can come together and ensure that that roadway is being appropriately set for its speed limit, conducive with the land use that's happening around it. And as it sits right now, we've submitted our literature review to the city for review. We've received some comments back on that. We'll be sending the draft on to Corey here within the next couple of weeks. I'm certain that that'll be circulated around for everyone to take a look at.
So that concludes our presentation. It's short. We spent about 2.5 hours this morning with the advisory team trying to cover all the material that we covered here in about 10 minutes. But be happy to take any questions from council at this point.
Questions from council members? Councilmember Zarlingo.
A couple of them. One of them is that I've got constituents who've talked to me about traffic safety and pedestrian safety. And so is there any particular node for them to connect with in terms of the engagement you're talking about to make sure they're part of that?
Yes, absolutely. I would have them start on our website with our Vision Zero program. They can reach out directly to me. My email's on there. Happy to take any and all feedback. Brent can talk a little bit about some of the tools we have for the public to interact.
Sure, yes. The beginning of the next month in February, we'll be releasing a online comment tool that I have a map of the city of Everett, and that will allow for anybody who has access to the internet to mark and comment on specific locations that they based on their experience, whether it's a safety concern associated with bicycles or pedestrians or walking or traffic, and a variety of options there. So we will have that tool ready in February, currently in the process of getting that ready to be in Spanish and Russian languages, and so we'll make that accessible to as many as possible. So look for that beginning of next month.
Okay. The other question I had, I sometimes see Everett compared to Renton, a city of similar size that has significantly less of these deaths and injuries. So I'm curious about the best sense you can provide, or what are some of the drivers and what are some of the differences in our cities?
Sure. When it comes to, injury and fatality crashes in Everett, pedestrians are number one. And I think when you look at the city of Everett, we have a very long city. It's thin and long. It's about 7-8 miles long. And we have a lot of very wide multi-lane arterials going north and south, and a lot of crossing traffic that wants to cross that, and a lot of pedestrians that also want to cross. Became very clear to us early on that pedestrians are going to be a big focus in this plan. And we're going to work very hard to explore every option to reduce pedestrian injury and fatal crashes.
Okay. Great. Anything else?
Yeah, I would concur with what Corey had mentioned as we look at some of the key corridors here. Not going to be a surprise to you. Broadway is one that we were talking about this morning. Need for both speed management, pedestrian crossings. A lot of the crashes are associated with long space in between crossing opportunities, and so are there things you can do, whether it's additional crossings, whether it's raised medians to provide a refuge, and then also really taking a look at what is the appropriate speed for all of our streets. If you reduce speed, there's a dramatic relationship between a pedestrian who is hit going at 40 miles per hour versus a pedestrian who is hit at 20 miles or 25 miles per hour. Much higher probability of survival at those lower speeds. And so the speed management effort that we're doing considers a context, what the pedestrian activity is, what the bicycle activity is associated with those corridors, and then really using that to inform what is the appropriate speed limit.
Okay, man, I guess then that means kind of over time, some of those corridors are seen a little less as an easy commute corridor for people transiting through the city. All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, great.
Yeah.
That's it.
Councilor
Thank you.
Tui?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I know we'll be asked, because we get asked a lot about some of these safety issues, is a timeline on when we might see the speed limit policy or some safety improvement ideas on some of these major driveways.
Thank you, Councilmember. Great question. So our the policy for speed limit setting, we moved up in the schedule, and I'm expecting to see a draft being circulated on around the end of the month.
Oh, great.
And so we'll be able to take a look at that and get feedback from everybody, including the public. I think as far as, projects, that is going to be reviewed in workshop 3, which happens in March. And so we'll start seeing what some of the systemic changes we need to make in the city of Everett to reduce injury and fatal crashes are at that time. And then also see individual projects that come out of this that are proposed that we can compete for funding to reduce those crashes.
Great. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you. And I think Councilmember Bader was first, but.
Okay.
Thank you. I thank you, Corey and team, for all of this. I lost a friend to traffic violence, and so this, the goal of having no traffic violence is something that I really, really appreciate. I did want to just confirm that pedestrian leading intervals were going to be part of this study and body of work.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Good point. Yes, pedestrian leading intervals, or what we call leading pedestrian intervals, LPIs. We talked about them quite a bit this morning at our advisory team meeting. There's a lot of support for those. You're going to see more of those implemented around the city this year. And in identifying these corridors and these intersections, they're going to be our first and priority when it comes to pedestrian safety, and LPIs are a big part of that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bader?
Thanks, Council President. Thanks for the work on this. As you know, this was briefed, I think, at one of our committee hearings, and wanted to repeat my concerns here about this. We already have people who don't obey the existing speed limits, for instance, or the existing traffic ordinances. So it seems to me that enforcement is probably the key concern here, or the key way of getting more safety. Lowering the speed limits is just going to make more people violators of those speed limits. Without enforcement, it isn't necessarily going to make streets any safer. I note when you briefed us on this at the committee that we were also covering traffic cameras, and you pointed out that the school camera there on Casino Road have several repeat violators that have racked up dozens and dozens of violations, and yet we have no effective way of getting those people off the road despite those violations and that complete lack of safety. I'd also note that I believe that most of the pedestrian fatalities in Everett lately have occurred where the driver was not cited, indicating that it was probably the pedestrian at fault. I don't know about the January 10th incident, but over the last 5-6 years, I've kind of kept track of those, and so concerned about that. It seems to me that a significant number of the serious crashes we get are due to either people driving under the influence or serial repeat offenders who just don't take our traffic laws seriously, and we need to get them off the road altogether in order to really impact this. I'm concerned that some of these changes would unreasonably burden law-abiding drivers and bicyclists and pedestrians, and that, for instance, lowering speed limits on residential streets to 20 miles an hour would just be universally ignored, and would make many of our drivers essentially law violators. And I just don't think that's an acceptable outcome when it seems to me that the cause of most of these serious crashes and fatalities are due to people who are either serial violators and we haven't gotten them off the road yet, or are under the influence. So anyhow, I just wanted to voice those concerns again.
Did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to go ahead and kind of speak to that. So when we look at speed limit setting and looking at these policies, this is just a layer to what it really takes, and it does take the involvement of not only our enforcement but also our engineers as well as our community members, right? So this is, I think, any of us who have been in this field for a long time, we're very familiar with the 3 E's, right? This is engineering, education, and enforcement. Those 3 things matter, and they need to all participate in order for us to see a safety increase, right? So I'm not sure what the speed limits in the neighborhoods are going to look like, but this is the start to try to figure out a decent way that we can come together as a team to be consistent in how we're looking at each one of our neighborhoods and then educate our neighbors as we're going through this process as well. So I can understand that, and I hope that we all work together to get to that goal.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Will there be some monitoring of the current speeds, not speed limits, but the habits of our drivers? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Council President Schwab.
Yeah.
Yeah, there will be monitoring. We will go out and place tubes or cameras to collect speed data, and probably on about a 3-year rotation to evaluate whether we see speeds actually drop. You know, we haven't evaluated all the arterials yet, and so some speeds will not drop. You know, some may recommend an increase, but we do expect some of the arterial speed limits maybe are a bit high at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I get most of the feedback is from the side streets. The Google users that are trying to save 30 seconds and taking the back streets. And also, is it going to include self-appointed racetrack driving at night in Southwest Everett? Silvers Ducey Road, that area there.
So, to the policy, the
I was
speed
being a little
policy itself?
sarcastic, but we have a lot of high-speed driving going on in the middle of the night in the Southwest Washington.
So part of this policy does require data collection, and I think that that's a very large piece in order for this policy to continue to work through its procedures. So the data that Corey's talking about is necessary to even evaluate these roadways. Again, it's a step to that, right? And so looking at what kind of contextual factors are along that roadway, looking at the existing speeds that we're seeing being traveled along that roadway are going to lead us down that road to making a very consistent decision-making based on data.
And then just for a comment, as far as education, we have a lot of non-residents that use our streets, especially during commuting hours. Is there a way or methods to appeal or shape behavior in those particular drivers? Because obviously a water bill for the city of Everett is not going to get to them, and so are the other 30,000 to 50,000 drivers.
Yeah, good point, Councilmember. Yes, we will be doing outreach to our largest employers in the city, and getting that safety message out there that we need to keep an eye on our pedestrians. Some of the largest commute times happen when grade schools get out, and so part of this process and the public outreach will be to educate the public on the kinds of safety, responsible safety actions that everyday people can take. And I think when people are commuting through a residential neighborhood, sometimes they might drive that differently than if they live there. And so conveying that message that, driving like you live here is going to be an important message that we put out as part of our outreach.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay, we have a potential adoption and motion before you. Item number 15.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion and second's been made. Any further comments from council? Okay, clerk, please take the roll.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes, okay, thank you. Moving on to item 16, which is a legislative session briefing.
Yes, thanks, Council President. We have our lobbyist Trevor Justin, his camera's on now, on Zoom, and so no PowerPoint, but just a sort of session preview and briefing of things as we enter the second week of the legislative session. And so I will just turn it over to Trevor and fill in as necessary.
Yeah, thanks, Council. Good to see you again, Mayor. Good to see you again. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, as you might expect, down in Olympia on the legislative campus. We're right next door, working away, given it's week 2. Want to rewind, just kind of a super high level kind of election recap, and then set the stage for some of the dynamics that the legislature is dealing with. Let's roll back to November. Not significant shifts in the legislative makeup. Democrats picked up 1 seat in the House and 1 seat in the Senate, so Democrats will continue to have significant majorities in the legislature. Gives them actually 60% supermajorities in both chambers, both the House and the Senate. Again, picked up 1 seat in each chamber. And I think one of the most significant pieces from the election, obviously, we have a new governor for the first time in 12 years, Governor Ferguson. 3 other statewide electeds as well. So not too much shift in the legislature, given that the split or the makeups of Republicans and Democrats. However, a lot of turnover. I think there's about 30 new legislators. The legislature actually just got 2 more new members last night in an appointment process. There was Governor Ferguson appointed a couple to his department heads, a couple legislators. Former Representative Tana Sen, former Senator Joe Wynn got appointed to lead. Senator Wynn got appointed to lead the Department of Commerce. Representative Sen got appointed to lead DCYF, Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So 2 new legislators just got appointed last night. I think the stage is finally set now. They finally have representatives and senators for every district. But one of the significant pieces as we headed into the legislative session is the current fiscal landscape that the state is dealing with. Back in November, it was reported to be about $10 to $12 billion shortfall over the 4-year outlook. Now it's closer to $12 to $16 billion shortfall over the 4-year outlook. That's kind of generally talking about the operating budget. The state operates on a biennial cycle, so 2-year cycles. However, the state's budget has to balance over that 4-year period. So a lot of budget writers just talking that 4-year term. That 12 to 16 billion is a 4-year number. So the state has a big task ahead as we've headed into the 105-day legislative session. A lot of discussions about budget cuts and revenues and taxes. So again, these are all conversations that will play out over the next 100 or so days as we head into the session. Want to kind of, I guess I'll pause there if there's any questions, and then I'll cover our legislative agenda. But any questions on that real quick? Okay, I will jump into the agenda. 2025 state legislative agenda that we worked on, obviously with Jennifer, Dan, the mayor, and I know Jennifer sought feedback from council members as well. Similar to what we've done in the past, we kind of have those 4 larger buckets and then specific items in those buckets. First bucket being that quality of life, economic development, and housing bucket. You heard about our Everett Fire Training Facility. I'll get a little bit more on that in a second. But that funding item was not funded, even though it was the top ranked project, was not funded in the governor's budget. So advocating strongly for that, about 6.7 million in the capital budget. Obviously super supportive of home ownership and affordable housing opportunities. We actually just got a new transit orient development draft that just was released, I think just yesterday. So we'll be taking a look at that. Want to be supportive of density options in the city. A lot of the work the city has already done, but encouraging the state to adopt for other communities to do their part as well. And then expansion of green infrastructure, strong supporter of that also. In the revenue opportunities, tools, and challenges bucket, there will be a lot of discussion on the lifting the 1% property tax cap again, as we had a lot of discussion on that last year. City has been strong supporters of that policy in the past and will continue to do so this legislative session. again, that would give you all the authority to lift the property tax cap from 1% a year to 3% a year with inflation. So again, we'll be at the table on that policy discussion. We've had some discussion around some fire benefit charges and legislative authority around that. We've had some discussions with some of the firefighting groups. And right now we want to explore, what's in statute now, what we could explore within the city, what's on current statute, and then have further discussions with some of those firefighter groups. Indigent defense standards, want to make sure that the state doesn't put a big unfunded mandate on the city. I know there's discussions about these costs increasing, and a lot of the attorneys' workloads have been extremely high over the last handful of years. So it's kind of right sizing those standards of how many cases those public defenders can take. Just important that, this cost doesn't get dumped onto cities. Obviously, we have significant fiscal challenges at the city as well. And with that, we're looking at, given the FIFA World Cup will be here in 2026, looking at ways we can kind of leverage and access some of that tourism dollars, looking at the lodging tax to see if we can kind of put an inflator in for a short period of time to capture some of that revenue that'll be coming to the greater Seattle area, to Snohomish County, to City of Everett, and likewise. So Representative Cortez is looking at a policy proposal on that. We're at the table discussing that with him. And then, of course, protecting any state shared revenues from cities. I know when state has tough fiscal challenges, they look at, kind of shaking up the state shared revenue that cities and counties get. So I want to make sure we protect all those state shared revenues that are coming to the city. In the workforce development bucket, similar to what we've supported in the past, improving childcare access and affordability. Obviously, that helps the workforce and our businesses. So I want to be strong supporters of any childcare efforts, the policy proposals that we may see before the legislature, and then any type of behavioral health and general healthcare workforces. Obviously, those are significant workforces in the city, so want to be strong supporters of those proposals as well. And then, of course, behavioral health and public safety. We have a little bit of a long list here, but giving cities the authority, to address noise violations from vehicles. Those are flock cameras, seeing if we have authority to kind of use some of those for noise. Flock does have the technology, so exploring some of those policy proposals. There was a pilot program in the city of Kirkland, I believe it was a year or two ago. So having discussions on how that worked and if we could bring some of that technology to Everett. Of course, recruit and retain police officers. We signed in pro on a bill that would add $100 million to public safety that would help cities recruit and retain police officers. We want to be strong supporters of that proposal. Voluntary treatment options, of course. We have our EMOTE program, which is our emergency medical opioid treatment. This was funding we got in last year's budget. Really been doing some great work on the street medicine front. I was lucky enough to be a part of a presentation back in December by city staff on that program, and it seemed we're making a tremendous impact with that funding. That one makes us nervous because a lot of times in tough fiscal years, it's kind of the last money in is the first money out. So I want to see if we can hold on to that. I think it's just about $500,000 for the biennium. And other behavioral health and public safety policy proposals as well. Jennifer, anything I missed there that we want to highlight?
I think you hit it all, yeah.
And then, of course, support of capital and transportation budget priorities, the Recreation and Conservation Office. The city is ranked highly on some of the grant programs, so hope to get full funding on some of those projects. Of course, US2 investments and other transportation investments we'll be strong supporters of also. And then I will just highlight quickly, week one, we got right down to it. As you heard, Chief DeMarco, Councilmember Ryan testified on the outgoing Governor Inslee's proposed budget. He delivered that budget to the legislature in December, and then he left office on January 15th. So, but the legislature still considers that the governor's budget. And as was reported earlier, even though Everett Firefighter Training Facility was ranked the #1 project, it was not included in the governor's budget proposal. He did include about $10.7 million for that grant bucket, 6.7 of that hopefully dedicated to the city. Again, we were not included, but we've already had outreach to our legislators, to others, have some conversations with Department of Commerce. I think the mayor and council members were spot on. It's kind of that game of the state wants to see the federal allocate money, the feds want to see the state allocate money. So just being real clear with legislators and hoping to secure that funding in the capital budget that passes the legislature. So we're already hard at work on that and other priorities. I think Jennifer mentioned earlier, a lot of bills are getting filed now. I think there's already been, 700 or 800 that have been filed since last week. So going through those bills, taking positions, if you all have interest in bills or specific policy proposals, please flag that for Jennifer and I and Dan, and we will continue to review those and weigh in kind of as we have our outline on our agenda, but happy to weigh in on other proposals that you all have interest in. So I will pause there to see if there's any questions. I think that covers most of it, but happy to take any questions. I will say thanks again to the chief and Councilmember Ryan for testifying on that DCCA Everett Firefighter Training Facility. Very impactful. Always good to testify in support of those policies. Looks like Councilmember Bader has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Appreciate the speed of your presentation, but I couldn't catch there on if you were talking about just about voluntary commitment threshold, or were you also mentioning involuntary commitment threshold, which I think the city is interested in. Thanks.
Involuntary commitments, I think a lot of those policy proposals where, individuals are struggling, right, want to make sure we can get the care that they deserve. So, there's a lot of work in the behavioral health space. We're going to be reviewing a lot of proposals, how we can make an impact and be supportive of those.
Great, thanks for the clarification. Sorry,
Good question. Good question.
And I'll just add, I continue to work with fellow mayors throughout Snohomish County as mayors and business leaders for safer communities. Collaborative effort, and I'll be in Olympia with fellow mayors for that. And we have a legislative agenda as well. I don't have it in front of me, but I am happy to share an update at a upcoming council meeting, and so you're aware of what I'm doing with fellow mayors in the safety arena. A lot of it is very aligned with our agenda that Trevor shared. So there aren't any surprises there, but it's just a little bit more focused on the safety arena. So I'll share that at a future council meeting. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a quick question about our coordination with AWC. I'm assuming that you're working with them on a lot of these issues.
Absolutely. They have a weekly meeting that I always attend, and they go through the bills and how they're weighing in. And so yeah, we're in close coordination with AWC, and I see Candace and Carl up on the Hill nearly every day. So yeah, very, very close communication with the association.
Could you go in a little more detail about your discussions over the fire benefit charge?
Yeah, we flagged this for some stakeholders. I think there's highlighted some legislative authority that's already on the books that we're exploring. We got a long note from the fire chiefs that are always happy to work in collaboration with ways to increase fire benefits to the communities. So we're exploring some of that authority that's already on the books. There's been a couple pieces of legislation that have passed over the last 5 or 6 years. So we're looking at those, seeing if there's any room that the city can use within existing legislative authority, and then, not proposing any changes right now to that fire benefit charge, but always exploring opportunities for how we can increase resources there.
And then one other question, has there been discussion about funding for the stadium, the soccer and baseball stadium?
Yes, absolutely. I should have mentioned that. Good question, council member. Yes, talking to our delegation, I should note too, we met with all of our 38th district legislators in December. So we kind of gave them the rundown of our legislative agenda prior to session. And I know Representative Cortez and others are interested in asking for additional funds for the stadium. So we are having those conversations now. We're working on those capital budget forms. They're not due for a few weeks, but we are actively having conversations and seeing what opportunity is available. Obviously, we received the $7.4 million previously in the 2023 capital budget. So working on making sure those funds are reallocated so we can spend those hopefully in the next biennium, and then seeing what other additional opportunities there are in this capital budget for additional funds.
Councilmember Tui.
Sorry for not mentioning that earlier.
Okay, we had a question. Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I know I don't know how involved you are in the Department of Commerce's Building for the Arts, but I know that's in the capital budget, and several nonprofits in downtown Everett have grant requests in there. Does that still, do you have any update on that, or if it's still looking complete, or?
Councilmember Tui, I do not. I'm happy to look into it though.
Okay.
Again, we've been talking closely with the Department of Commerce on our DCCA funding, so happy to see happy to take a look what was in the governor's budget and happy to support where that grant bucket is, kind of find out some more details and see where our projects lie. Absolutely happy to look into it.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like any more questions. Thank you very much for all your efforts and for the quick report.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you all.
Okay, that was the last item on our agenda. No executive session. Without any further business, we are now adjourned.